we had Drupal training yesterday, and I suppose I did not get a chance. I didn't arrive. I arrived late night yesterday, but I'm assuming that it was pretty good Drupal training. But the thing is, in order to benefit from the Drupal training, you need to have certain basics in place ahead of time, and that's what this presentation is about. So the idea is, what do you need to know before you get to Drupal learning? So Drupal development, and keep in mind that this will talk about the other technologies, the web technologies like HTML, CSS, Linux, MySQL, PHP, those kinds of technologies that you need to know before you can start doing Drupal development. And also keep in mind that we are going to talk about, it's going to get you ready for Drupal development, not just site building, but also development. In fact, some of this is about development. So with that in mind, let's get started. So as the title says, Drupal Prereqs, prerequisites, what you need to know before you start learning Drupal. My name is Jitesh Doshi. I work for Spinspire. So Spinspire is a company out of Jacksonville. We do Drupal development work for Nike and Florida Blue and other companies like that. I'm on Twitter at spinspire_com, and you can download this presentation, by the way, and I would encourage you to do that from spinspire.com/articles, and the first article, the top article is this one, and then you can see, you can go, you don't even download it, it's a Google Doc, so you just open it in your browser. So that's how you can follow along. So you want to be a Drupal developer. In this presentation, we will cover what you should already know. And when I say already, I mean like now, probably. Then what you need to learn before starting Drupal development. So that's the part that we will cover for the most part in this presentation. And then just before we leave you, we basically give you some resources, some ideas on how to get started into Drupal development. We will not actually cover Drupal development. We will cover the stuff that comes before. And it's very, very important to be in the developer mindset. So I think that if anything will be helpful, I hope this one thing you do. If there is one thing you take away from this presentation, it should be that the developer mindset is slightly different. User mindset is a different thing, and we'll talk about that. Hopefully, I'll be able to communicate that, because it's very hard to transfer. All right, so why should you become a Drupal developer? Well, maybe you are already doing static website development or maybe WordPress development, and you came across situations that cannot be done as static sites or WordPress sites, and you want to do more. Maybe you are a web application developer yourself, but you have, every time a lot of web application developers, they build the whole site from ground up, and they implement every feature, including user management and page management and this and that, everything, right? And if you learn Drupal, you would realize that most of those things, every site has to do, and therefore they should be pre-built. So 90% of functionality is common across sites, and what is unique is what you should be working on. That's where you should be spending your energies on, and that's why you would want to learn Drupal. Then you want to take full advantage of cloud and mobile, because now with Drupal 8 is responsive, from ground up. And when I say cloud, because you don't want to host your sites on your own private server or a server in your data center and so on and so forth. And I think it's time to do that. You're also tired of using static shared hosting, those kinds of situations. So, and then finally, this happens to be a very, very common reason why people end up using Drupal or learning Drupal is because your employer or your job requires it. I mean, they're already using Drupal, and that's, I guess you don't have much of a choice in that case. So, okay. What am I assuming in this presentation? I'm assuming that you are a computer power user, in the sense that, you know how to, you're already doing, serious stuff with computer. You're not just a consumer of computer usage or something. Like, for example, you use Alt Tab to switch between windows as opposed to, hunting and pecking with a mouse or something like that. So, and then you know how to find and research information on the web, because that's what will take for you to research things, find things out, learn. And you must know at least one programming language. Anyone will do. PHP would be nice, but if not PHP, something else would be good, because otherwise, well, we can relax this requirement, because if you can make PHP the first language that you learn, and that's a possibility. And the other thing is you must have a general understanding of the web. What does that mean? That means you don't look at a browser and think of it simply as a GUI window. Okay, you realize that behind that, yes, there is content being rendered. You know that this is content. When you look at a web page, you have an instinctive understanding that, okay, there is a text, there is this text, and then there is an image that is embedded, as opposed to, you're looking at it like a magazine, page or something like that, which is, so basically, some people have a very flat understanding of web. They go to web and they look at it as if it's a magazine or newspaper or a piece of paper with stuff printed and imprinted on it. That's how non-technical people would think of the web. Slightly technical people would understand that, okay, this is text. They would drag their mouse instinctively over text. And then when it comes to an image, they would instinctively double-click the image, hoping that it would, blow up a little and, present a larger version of itself. Or whenever they see a bunch of images, they would instinctively realize that there might be a slideshow hidden there somewhere, stuff like that. So in general, they have an idea that what they are looking at is not a bunch of pixels. It has structure to it, and that's one thing. Second thing, if you have a general understanding of the web, then you know that there is a server somewhere, and I am sitting here on my laptop or on my phone or desktop, whatever, and we are connected over the internet. So they have a fairly good understanding of what's going on, okay? Which I do believe that, most people here do. I mean, they understand. They don't think of this as magic. Okay. So with those assumptions, let's see what you will need. So these are the things that we might these are the things that you must actually have available to you, and they're not very hard to obtain in case you don't, which is except a computer, sorry. I mean, so you have a computer, of course. Linux, Mac, Windows will do. You must have an internet connection again, and that's kind of a given. And now the rest of them, let me skip over cloud hosting for 1 second, the third bullet, and then you can easily get Chrome and Firefox browser, no big deal, right? Anybody can download. I'm assuming you already use one of these browsers. And then a bunch of free software that we can download, okay? So none of this is hard, I'm assuming. The middle one, the cloud hosting. So this is not a requirement. It's nice to have. If you're going to develop Drupal sites, you're going to present them, you're going to share them with the world, right? And if you're going to share them with the world, you're going to host them somewhere. And that's going to be, now you have a few choices. You could use shared hosting, or you could use VPS hosting, both. And does everybody understand the difference between shared and VPS hosting? Okay, VPS stands for Virtual Private Server, okay? So what that means is imagine that you had a physical server, a Dell XP, whatever, some server, right? But this, instead of that, it's a virtual server in the sense that it's a virtual machine, VM, right? And it's in the cloud. So it solves so many problems. A, there is no physical hardware to maintain. B, there is no internet, always on internet connection to maintain. So, and C, it's not in your own basement, it's up in the cloud, which also means, remember that most of us, our internet connections are not on the information superhighway. They're not on the highway. We are in an alley down, in a corner. So basically, our connections are not closer to the internet backbone, right? But the cloud hosting providers, they obviously they're designed for this. So they're closer to the internet backbone, which means they have not only they have fatter, bigger pipes, but more importantly, they're closer to the center, high traffic areas of the internet, which means they are designed for serving content. Now, our internet connections, the Comcast or whatever cable modem stuff that we have, they are better designed for consuming content, not so much for serving, right? That's why we have much faster download speeds, but not so fast upload speeds, because that's what it's designed for. But these connections in these hosting providers' facilities, they are for serving content. Okay, so back to the VPS versus shared. Shared hosting basically means that somebody gives you a certain amount of disk space and some undetermined amount of CPU power to serve your content. Okay, that is shared hosting. You don't know how much CPU is available to you. You don't know how much memory is available to you, usually very, very small. And even they might say 128 MB, but it might actually not really be that much. So that's why shared hosting can be problematic. It is technically possible to serve Drupal sites from shared hosting, but I would not recommend it. It's going to be very hard. Again, the fact that you are choosing Drupal over WordPress is another indication that your needs are slightly more complex than what could be done with WordPress or static sites, and therefore shared hosting may not be appropriate for you. Again, I've seen WordPress sites being served from shared hosting, and they work for the most part. But then, WordPress almost by definition means your needs are simpler. So again, I would recommend you to have VPS hosting. And if you are going to have a managed, there is a third possibility called managed hosting, which is a hybrid between VPS and shared, where they do guarantee a certain amount of CPU and memory and other resources, but then they manage it for you. So you don't log into it like a Linux box. In VPS hosting, it is your own virtual private server, which means you SSH, you remote into the machine, and you manage it yourself. So, you get a lot of power, but you also have a lot of responsibility, because now this is your server, you are root, you're the administrator on it. Okay, all right, that's good. Now, what to expect? You are going to become a Drupal developer. How much time should you put into it? I would say at least 10 hours a week. Less than that, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. So you should have 10 hours a week. I hope that's not too much, right? 10 hours means 2 hours every weekday, or maybe you cannot do it every weekday. Maybe 3 weekdays, that's 6 hours, and then on the weekend 4 hours or something like that. So, and then to cover these prerequisites, you might have to dedicate 2 or 3 weeks, and then when you get into actually learning Drupal development, it would be you should allocate at least 8 weeks with a mentor, and without, who knows, that depends on you. So if you have a guide, a mentor, it should take about 8 weeks to get to the point where you can start building and start simple coding of some sites. Okay. All right. my motivation? Why am I interested in this subject? Why am I doing this? You know, I believe that smart and talented people can work with anything. I mean, they just have to have the interest, motivation to do it. So we are a Drupal development company out of Jacksonville, and Spinspire is, that is. And we have customers like Nike and Florida Blue, and all the way down to small companies. Now, for this, typically we recruit graduates straight out of college. They're smart, motivated, talented people, but they don't have much experience. In many cases, they don't know PHP and SQL or MySQL, Linux, none of those things, let alone Drupal, okay, which comes much later. So we have to teach them these things very quickly, okay, because remember, we're paying their salaries, so we want them to be productive as soon as possible. So we want to shrink that learning cycle, the learning curve, and that's what I have been doing for the last 5 years, and I've had some success. We're still in business, so I guess that's a good sign. And that's the reason why I have given it a lot of thought, and I've done it a lot of times. I've iterated and I've improved, I hope, and that's what I want to share today. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do, even before you learn any other technical skills, is learn how to Google, how to search, how to research information. And trust me, it may sound trivial, but it bears repeating that there are a lot of people who search rather randomly, rather haphazardly. They don't actually search in the right way. So first of all, read the whatever message. So if you're trying to do something and you get an error, read what it says before you. It's so common for people to say, "Oh, I'm getting some kind of an error." Fine. I mean, an end user is allowed to say that, but even if you're half technical, you're not allowed to say that. You're supposed to say, "Hey, I'm getting an error that relates to let's say the connection is not secure," or "I'm getting a PHP error and it's saying it's out of memory." Now there are probably other details like out of memory in so and so module, so and so section. That's okay. You skipped that detail, but at least you did not say, "Oh, the site crashed." I mean, that's not enough. Okay, so read the message. Look at where it is originating from. I could not connect to the site, in which case there is a networking issue, or maybe the server is down, or you connected, but then there was a problem, PHP ran out of memory, or PHP is not the problem, but could not connect to the database. Whatever it is, read it. Do not stop at, "Oh, this is an error page. I'm afraid of error pages. I must run away. I must, close my eyes, shut down my computer," whatever. Don't do that. Read the error message. Most of the time, the problem is in the error message. I'm not saying that error messages cannot be misleading. They can, but most of the times they are not. All right. So then you start searching. Then you Google it. Then but then you do not copy and paste the entire error message, or nor do you simply say, "My website is down, some error." So when you say my website is down, there is some error, you're not giving any context. Millions of reasons possible, right? So that is too general, no context at all. So when you search, put in some context, be a little bit specific, but then in the right next one, I say, but not too specific. Why? Because when you copy pasted the error and you included the line number also in it, now you're being too specific. What are the chances that somebody else is having that error on that specific line number? No, there isn't. I mean, so don't be so specific that it narrows down too much, and don't be so general that the whole internet is a target. So, and result, so the answer is be somewhere in between, and you will know. I will show you in a second. So then look at the summary. Oh, the word at is missing, sorry. Look at the summary of results before you click. What that means is, when you Google through, when you go and take a look at, let's see, I say PHP out of memory, let's see, okay? I'm searching that. So look at this output first. Read the title and read this summary part of the first 5 or 10, at least maybe the first page. That's the first thing you do. The second thing is, don't just click on it. Control click on it. Why am I saying control click? As you can see, as I'm control clicking, there are these new tabs opening up. You could also right click and say open link in new tab. Same thing. The point is, why am I doing that? Because, sorry? That's right. Because the search result is important. It is not very likely that you will click on the right one the first time, right? So you will probably go down the wrong rabbit hole, and you want to come back from there, and so you don't want to lose your search results. So that way, as soon as I click on the first 3 or 4 and I find that these 2 are irrelevant, so I close them off, and then I say, okay, yeah, all of them are irrelevant. Let me just go further down and see, oh yeah, this might be useful. Let's go there. And so that's why I'm control clicking. So anyway, for some of you, how to Google is rather rudimentary, and you would rather not discuss that, but sometimes it's necessary. Okay. Another prerequisite: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are prerequisites. You need to know those things. Now, that doesn't mean that you know that already today. That's not the assumption. The thinking is that before you get into Drupal development, you will learn this. And there are various resources. There are many. Of course, you can Google that and say, hey, learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there will be lots of hits. In general, I have found Code Academy, if you like really slow-paced guided learning, then Code Academy is your friend, but it goes too slow for my taste, okay? So I do not ask my employees to go through Code Academy because I feel that it takes too long. It just takes forever to go through that. But it is right if you don't have an expert nearby. I think it's a good place. On the other hand, if you do have some mentoring, some guidance, or if you are a self-taught kind of person who can go through things quickly, then W3 Schools is what I would recommend. Because W3 Schools is more like a self-directed, self-paced kind of situation. It's more almost like a reference guide, okay, which is appropriate for people who don't feel lost when a lot of information is presented. You can go at your own pace. You can go really fast if you want. So, and these two sites, they have courses and course outlines and complete modules on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. No issues. So those you would want to learn. I would add jQuery to this, but it's okay if you don't. But yes, jQuery is something that Drupal kind of assumes that you have. Okay, it uses jQuery. Okay. All right, so obviously not everybody can learn from just reading websites and articles. If you are the kind of person who learns better with physical books or printed books or even electronic books, then absolutely, by all means. I unfortunately cannot recommend specific books because I don't remember the last time I read a book in full. So unfortunately, I guess that's the result of our internet culture. People don't have a very long attention span. We we start reading. I mean, I get bored. I cannot read anything back to back, front to back, right? So I read articles, and that works for me. I do know a lot of people who that it doesn't work for them, and that's fine. But easy way is go to Amazon, search for the books, and then look at the reviews. Best way to find good books. You're looking at other people's reviewing, and they will say something about it. If it's a really advanced, let's say you are at a certain level, and you hear some much more advanced person praising it, it should have less weight in your mind. But somebody who is at the same level as you is praising it, now that makes more sense, right? So I would suggest you do that. You will need to install a decent text editor, and by decent text editor, I do not mean Notepad. And so Microsoft Windows Notepad is not a decent text editor. I mean something real like Notepad++ or Sublime Text, Atom, Vim, any of those, good editors. I would recommend against using visual editors like, HTML editors like there used to be Front Page and what's it called? What are the other ones? The HTML editors, good ones. WebFront? WebStorm. Yeah, I guess. WebStorm is one of the better ones because I like editors which give you, maybe they give you a visual layout, yes, but they don't completely hide the HTML text that goes behind it. And that's extremely important. The structure. HTML is all about structure. The problem with visual editors, especially those who hide the structure, is like if you're hiding the structure, this is not a print medium, okay? In a print medium, all that matters is what you can see on the page, right? Nothing else, because it's printed. It gets printed once and for all. While in web and in HTML is not even static websites are not static because you could change the size of the browser. You could be looking at it in mobile, and now it has a very different structure and a very different look. That's why it is extremely important that you pay attention to the structure of HTML. Without that, you're assuming that this is a print medium, and it's not. Okay, HTML reacts to the browser window size. It reacts to the type of browser. It reacts to user actions like clicking. A print medium like paper doesn't. So that's why that is why you can create visual like a brochure in Adobe InDesign or Photoshop and so on and so forth. That makes sense. You cannot create HTML sites the same way because these things are supposed to interact with the user, and that's why structure is important. And that's why the HTML language, the angle brackets and the tags and the attributes, all those things become extremely important. That's why I recommend against visual editors. Yes, I was thinking of Dreamweaver, and again, as long as you use the back end of the Dreamweaver with the structure, then okay. But if all you're looking at is how the page looks, then no. Okay, and initially when the last bullet is talking about initially when you are learning HTML, you will look at the browser locally at the page that you're editing. Just double click on it, it opens up in the browser, look at it. At that point, you don't even have a server running, and that's fine, okay? Because you're learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All of those will operate just fine without a server. Okay. Then, Chrome Developer Tools. So let me very quickly, at this point, let me switch to a quick demo. So because Chrome Developer Tools, let me just talk about it first. Does everybody know, have you seen Chrome Developer Tools? Who hasn't? Okay, everybody has then. We can skip over. Can I just skip over it? Then you know what is there. Sorry?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you like it do you think Firebug is equivalent, or do you think Chrome Developer Tools does some things better than Firebug and you would recommend it more?
Okay, let me be honest. When I started, I was using Firefox, okay? And so that's where but I haven't used Firefox in 5-6 years at least. So, or maybe longer. So I do not, Firebug, I am pretty confident that Firefox is as good as Chrome Developer. I just don't know it that well anymore. But I am pretty confident that it's the same level. It might even be better, I don't know. Okay, so as long as you use either Chrome Developer Tools or Firebug, Firefox Dev Tools, that's fine. All right, so since you guys already know Chrome DevTools, I can almost skip over this, but let me just do this. Let me very quickly show you what all is there. So basically, let's say you want to see how this web page was written. Okay, you want to see. Okay, I am not sure if this is the header area, if this is the banner area, or is this also included in the banner. You just whatever you have your curiosity about, right click on that and say inspect. Okay, since we have less, so this is the Chrome Developer Tool window. You might already know that you can detach it, you can undock it. Because I have less screen real estate, I'm going to undock it. So I did. So here, okay, so I can hover. Making it hard for me to. Come on. It's very hard to. Okay, yes. Okay, so that's better. So as let me just inspect element again. So as I'm hovering, it's going over, it's highlighting whatever I'm hovering on, right? And that basically tells me, so there it is. This is the header area. You see this div, class, collapse, navbar collapse. So obviously you can dive into that. If you want to see how this thing would look without, if they didn't have it, you just right click on it and say delete. Where is it? Delete element. So that's how the site would look without it. And like that you can make changes. You can you can probably, let's say you want to see this image. Okay, it's an ahref, it's a link, but inside that there should be an image. Where is it? Oh, it is not an image. It's just a hyperlink. Well, then how does it show the image? Well, it's using background image, right? And then you can right click on this and say open link in new tab, and that's the image. Now you can download the image, do whatever with it, right? Or you want to see how would it look without the background image. So you just uncheck this checkbox, and now it's gone, and so on and so forth. So maybe you guys are already familiar with it. There is one thing that I'm pretty sure you don't know about, which is $0. In the console window, if you type $0, it shows you the DOM element that is the target of your inspect element, wherever you have focused. So in this case, my inspect element is focused on a href here, right? And then $0 showed that exactly. If I move my mouse and click on nav bar here, and then type $0 again in the console window, it shows me the nav bar. So what is the benefit of that? Well, many benefits. If I now, let's say if I go to the front page here, and let's say if I say log out and go back to login, and I type a password, you cannot see the password, right? Maybe you had saved it, okay? But you can inspect that element and say $0 dot. Now remember $0 is the DOM element, so you can say dot value, and that's my password. Can you see it? Well, anyway, if you had a password in it, you will be able to see it. So the thing is, that $0 is the actual DOM element, which means you can do stuff, you can do anything. You can say $0 dot value, let's say this one, inspect, and say, hey, what is the $0 value? Nothing, there is no value. But if you can assign it a value, so you just modified, I assigned it a value through this. $0 dot value equal to something, and it showed up here. So you are able to manipulate the DOM. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So there are a lot of things you can do. Let's keep going. So that was our little demo of Chrome Dev Tools. Okay. You can also, another thing that you should look at is you can do live debugging of JavaScript, by the way. So you could go to sources and find whatever. Let's say your JavaScript is wherever it is, there is some JavaScript. Okay, you go in there and you can actually put a breakpoint. You can, and then you reload the page and it'll stop right there, and then you can examine stuff. So this is a live debugger. Okay. Another interesting one is the network tab. You can see what network requests are going on. So if you just do a reload, refresh, so these are the requests, and you can even see what is slowing it down, what part of it is making it slow. So you can do a lot of interesting things here. Let's keep going. Server options. What time is it now? Let me make sure I'm probably taking too long. Oh, we have only 20 minutes left. Sorry, I'll have to run. Sorry? Oh, thank you. Okay, so the server options. What are your server options? You can have a local VM or you can have a cloud VM. VM is for virtual machine, and typically a VM generally means Linux VM. Okay, I don't know a lot of people that are running Drupal on VMs other than Linux. Okay. So the point is, you could run your virtual machine within your laptop, or you can run it in the cloud. So why would you? And then there are the other two options: are shared hosting and locally running web server. I would recommend against both of those two. Shared hosting, I just told you why, and that's a problem. And then local server, again, there is another issue, which is it doesn't mimic your actual production environment. So that is why I like the cloud VM the most, because a cloud VM is the closest thing to what you're going to run in production. In fact, your cloud VM could be a production, right? Although that's also not a very good idea. You probably want a dev server, dev VM, and a production VM so that you don't hurt your live running site. But so that's why I like cloud VM. A local VM is close enough, I think. All right, so then you know all about LAMP stack. Drupal runs on LAMP stack, Linux. People will say you could run the same thing on Mac and Windows. Technically, yes, you can. I don't think, I wouldn't do that, but you could. The A is for Apache, but I run all of my sites on Nginx. I do not run anything on Apache. Not because Apache is bad, I mean it has served us very well, but Nginx is so much faster, so much more flexible, it has so many features that I think, and it's a tiny VM, a tiny server. The amount of its memory footprint is very small, and it's very modular. So in every respect, I like Nginx. Then MySQL or MariaDB, which is the more open version of it. You can, database server, I guess, and PHP. PHP, again, if you're running in Apache, then PHP, there is a mod PHP that comes embedded with Apache. Or if you're running it with Nginx, then PHP runs as a separate server, and Nginx acts as a proxy to that PHP server. Am I making sense? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the virtual machine. What would you do? You would need, if you are running a local VM, then what do you need? You need a virtual machine player. A VM player is basically a software that will take an image and run it in a container, in a sandbox. That's what the player is. So VirtualBox is what I recommend. There are many others. There is Microsoft Virtual PC, and there is something like that on Mac. I forget the name of it. So any of those. So on your own laptop, VirtualBox runs on Linux, Windows, and Mac. So it's pretty ubiquitous. And then you could download a Linux CD or burn a CD and install the whole thing into a VM using that CD or a CD image. I don't think you need to do that. That's too much work. What I would suggest is, by the way, this presentation is available on spinspire.com, and if you go to the articles section, the top article is this. So I strongly recommend, I mean, that's why these are hyperlinks, but you don't see what they're pointing to until you click on it, and that's why I would say go to the presentation and click on the link yourself. So turnkeylinux.com, I think, is a very nice site. It gives you pre-built VM images. So these are .isos, yeah, they are CD images. You just mount that. You start VirtualBox. You say, I want to create a new virtual machine. And you say, I'm creating a Linux virtual machine, and so on and so forth. And then it will ask you, do you want to attach an optical drive, which a CD-ROM drive basically. And at that point you say yes, and then you would have downloaded one of these turnkey Linux ISO images. You use that image as if somebody has inserted a CD-ROM into the computer. You attach to that ISO image, and then when you boot from the CD, which is booting from the ISO image, and then you install it into your virtual machine. And that I think you can go one step further. So there are, I think, img files, yes, .img files that you install, or I think they are img files, whatever they are. Oh, vbox files, yeah, actually. And then you don't even have to install from a CD-ROM. It comes with a hard disk image that is pre-installed. So in every way, this is much less work. And then you log into that VM using an SSH client. Everybody here knows what SSH is and what an SSH client is? Okay, yeah, I'm going to assume if you don't, just let me know. I can go over that. So the SSH is secure shell. You use an SSH client such as the one for Windows people, the one that makes sense is Git Bash. I used to use PuTTY some time back. I do not use PuTTY anymore as my SSH client. The reason is I used to like PuTTY because copy pasting between PuTTY and other applications was much cleaner in PuTTY. The UI was nice. But the problem with PuTTY was that it uses a key format that is not compatible with OpenSSH and other servers. So of late, the Git Bash SSH client and the console, the terminal program has improved quite a bit, and it gives you all the features of PuTTY and more, and yet it is more compatible with Linux SSH servers and so on and so forth. So in every respect, I think Git Bash is a better client overall. So how would you work in a development environment like this? So you would run a local VM that is running Linux and Apache, Nginx, the whole LAMP stack, and then you would run NetBeans or some other editor, I would say NetBeans, on your Windows box, assuming you're using Windows. If you're using Mac, it's still valid. Okay, so you run NetBeans locally, and then you connect to the server which is running in a virtual machine. Okay, and then you edit, and I will show you in a second that as soon as you save, it will upload over SFTP to your server, so that it gives you the feeling that you are doing interactive editing of your code, or HTML or page or whatever it is. So, and then whatever management and administration tasks you have to do, you do that using the SSH client. And I'll show that in a second. All right, so then in terms of cloud VM, so if you are not running local, then what are your options? Lots of options, and they are very cheap. Some of them are free also. Like the last one, AWS, Amazon gives you 1 year free. But I find that a little complicated. I'm not very thrilled how complicated they make it. They don't keep it simple, basically. But in any case, you can go to Vultr or Speedy KVM, DigitalOcean. And then if you go to Turnkey Linux partners, there are a whole bunch of partners that you will see. So on Turnkey Linux, there are all these partners. And you can go to all of them, like any of them. So here, this Blue VM, for example, gives you $1 a month virtual machine. I mean, that's pretty cheap. So in any case, I would recommend that you do you set up you don't even bother with VirtualBox and virtual machines locally. This is because this is so much better. Okay. All right. So if assuming, so I really think that you can make this work. And you go to Turnkey Linux. In Turnkey Linux, there is if you go to Turnkey Linux, let me show you what that is. turnkeylinux.org.com, is it? I think com. Oh, sorry, I guess org. So here, there are all these turnkey images, and as you can see, one of them is Drupal. So if you take one of these images, install it on either on your cloud VM or on your local VM, you don't have to do any work of installation and so on and so forth. All the admin work is done for you ahead of time. And these images are very rich. They come with, all kinds of management consoles, etc. So I highly recommend those. Okay. So, and as you can see, there are others like Joomla and Nginx Turnkey and so many of them. Okay. Let's keep going. Where is it? Sorry, what happened? I lost my presentation. Oh yeah, that. What happened there? Why is it? Okay, so assuming you have signed up for a VM, you locally on your machine you install git bash. Like I said, that's a good SSH client, and then you generate a key. What does everybody here know what SSH keys are and why you should have them? Okay, good. Then you generate keys, and then you copy the key using a command called ssh-copy-key-id. Sorry, and you upload your key. From that point onward, you'd never have to supply a password. So I guess you guys already know that then. There are a few things that you should know. Again, remember we are talking about prerequisites for Drupal, okay, for Drupal development. What should you know before you start doing Drupal development? So either you already know how to handle bash. So if I have, bash, this is bash. So you should know something about ls, and then you know how to cd to someplace. Okay, so those kinds of things you need to learn. Also, you need to learn Control C for interrupting. Everybody knows that, but for Control D to end a session or a stream. So if I'm here and I press Control D, I'm pressing Control, holding down Control and pressing D, it ends my terminal. Similarly, if I was doing a cat command and sending my output to /tmp/foo.txt, I can type line 1, line 2, line 3, and now I'm done. If I want to end my input, I press Control D. And now whatever I typed ended up in /tmp/foo.txt. Okay. So those kinds of things you need to familiarize yourself. Again, you can Google bash tutorial. So the purpose of this session is to tell you what are, give you some pointers. Okay, these are the things that I need to learn. You should, okay, again, there are commands like cd, ls, pwd, top, ps, chmod, chown. Of course, there are more. But these are the ones that you will be using day to day. You need to learn VI editing. Now, Vim is VI improved. It's an extension of VI, but nowadays it's the standard. It has pretty much replaced VI. So if you are going to do any work within a Linux terminal, you need to learn VI editing. And so there are lots of very good tutorials, VI editing tutorials or Vim tutorials. In fact, there are games. So people have written games that teach you how to do VI editing. And you play the game, and it's a playful way of learning VI. And by the time you get any good at the game, you realize that you have also learned VI. Then for administration, you need to understand how sudo works. Sudo is do as super user, do something as a super user. In modern Linux or Unix administration, you are not supposed to log in as root. You are supposed to do most of your work as non-privileged user. And whenever you want to get into a privileged mode, you use sudo. So that should be the exception, not the rule. Using a privileged command should be the exception. So that's why we have sudo. It's much safer and more secure. Okay. And then again, if you're going to do any kind of administration, you need to learn apt-get or yum. These are package managers for Linux. All right, so you set up your VM by installing these things. So as you can see, you install Nginx, MySQL, PHP. There is a link to the article that I wrote, and the article also has an accompanying screencast video that walks through the entire process of installing all these things on a bare virtual machine. Okay. Or you can skip all of that and use these turnkey Linux images, pre-built images, and you have it out of the box. If you are interested in learning how to do these things piece by piece, then you can follow the article that is linked. So the process will be same whether you are doing this in cloud or in a local VM, either way. All right, so then you write your first PHP page. Again, we cannot teach you PHP in a short presentation like this, but you create a file called index.or test.php or something like that in your web root, and the web root is typically the var www.html or user share nginx HTML. So you go there, you create this PHP file with one function call for PHP info, which kind of prints a whole bunch of information, debug information about your PHP installation. Okay. We are running out of time. We have only 3-4 minutes left, so I don't think I'll be able to do a demo. I'm sorry about that. But there is a very, very detailed demo in the article that I mentioned. This article, the link, there is a whole screencast which goes through the entire thing, begin to end. I would say the link to this presentation is on DrupalCamp website, on spinspire.com website as well. So as long as you have this presentation available to you, you will be able to do everything that I have mentioned. All right, looks like we are not going to get to this setting up the IDE and the project. I wanted to, but again, all of this is in the video screencast that is linked. Okay, so I would recommend that. Finally, I want to use my last 2-3 minutes in talking about developers' mindset. This is what I think is the most important part, which is how to think like a developer. Although you should keep your end result in mind, do not start with building the end result. It never works. So if you want to build a skyscraper, you don't start building a skyscraper, you start with some plans and maybe then digging the foundation and then pouring a slab, and so on. I mean, all that has to happen. You don't start building the top floor of your skyscraper. That's not how you start. So same way, evolution, not revolution. You start incrementally. Always be in a known step or one step away from it. What does that mean? That means you know where you are, you know everything works, and now you take one step out of your comfort zone. Meaning, say you make one small change, which probably, so then you make the second bullet is you make the smallest change that could break or could work. Okay, so you make a small change to your code or to your server setup that either works or doesn't work. If it works, great, you can now take the next step. But if it doesn't work, you know that you are only one step away from a working state. That's the key thing, right? And now you take a step back, go back to the working state and see what was wrong with the step that you just took. Maybe you need to take a step in a different direction. So don't take 2 steps or 5 steps or 10 steps and then try to test. Don't do that, that's wrong. So this is called iterative development. So iterate within one step until it works. What does that mean? You're iterating, you try this, oh, it broke. You try this, it still breaks. Okay, maybe it's somewhere in between. This works. So now that is the iteration I'm talking about. You're trying very small incremental changes, and if they don't work, you roll it back. If they do work, then you take the next step. Okay, so another thing is imagination is more important than knowledge. This is related to Googling. You should know what to Google for, what to search for, and that's where imagination comes handy. Because knowledge is out there on the internet everywhere. You Google it and there is knowledge. What nobody can give you is imagination. Imagination is only here. So that's how you know what to look for. That's what imagination is. And then avoid too many variables. So meaning to say, in any environment, keep most of your variables fixed in known state and change only one variable. Let's say if you're going to increase the RAM, only increase the RAM. Don't replace your hard disk with SSD and replace your CPU and your memory and everything. Don't do everything at once. Do one change at a time. And then, as I said earlier, read the damn error message and try to understand what it says rather than just saying, oh, it doesn't work. All right, well, what next? There are these screencasts that so you have to, apply yourself to learn PHP, SQL. There are 2 playlists, 2 series of screencasts that we have to do. All right, we're out of time. We'll see you. Thank you.